Hi, I'm Laura. I'm working at a medical startup called Nimblic. They're calling me the Khaleesi of the front end because I own all the things on the front end, but also because I like to argue with people a lot about things, but in a good way, like I care about things being a good way. I met a girl here about 3 months ago who's like aspiring young front-end developer, and she was really excited about being in this industry and really keen to get started, but was just struggling to get any traction in her interviews. So I had a lot of conversations with her and did a lot of work with her, and I thought maybe this is stuff that would be worth sharing, and also a lot of these ideas are things that apply at any point in your career. But just out of curiosity, how many people here are like juniors or first gig or like just sort of starting out? Any hands up? And like mid-career, like say 5 or 6 years in? And like super expert people, like 10 plus? Kevin up the front, Peter, Alex, of course. Yeah, cool. All right, so this is hopefully still for everybody, but yeah, there's some beginner stuff in here, so bear with me if it's a little bit slow for you. And I'm kind of wrote a story based on like an amalgam of all the juniors I've worked with over the last couple of years, so it's sort of true, but not completely. Okay, so meet Evie. She just graduated from a front-end code program of your choice. She's trying to get work but not succeeding. She's really excited about being in the industry, but she's also a little bit frustrated. So I'm calling her gloomy and gigless. Yes, there's a lot of terrible puns in this. You just have to flow with it. Oh, wrong one. So this is her Friday night. She's sitting around playing with LinkedIn and trying to get people to pay attention to her and listening to this. Okay, all right, that's enough of that. Okay, so if I could hang out with her on Friday night, I would say to her, little Yoda Laura says to you, before looking outside for help, first you must look within. And what that means is, don't get frustrated if you're not having a lot of success at first. Just go learn shit, do things that are fun, lean in, like go do something. Don't just sit around going, why is no one hiring me? That's just a completely useless place to be, right? So yeah, go online, offline, code school, Udemy, General Assembly. There's so many, I'm not even trying to list them all, but there's a million places to learn something. There's so many good industry blogs. There's SitePoint dudes. There's just so many people making good content, arguing passionately about things. You don't have to always agree with them, but it's good to get in there and get an opinion about what you think is going on. Go to meetups like this, or hackathons, or conferences. Offer your skills, or say, hey, I'll try to do something. It may not be great, but at least give it a go. And side projects. Side projects is like so the must. Just find your local cafe that has an amazing barista and offer to make them a website, or build something in Meteor, or just go learn something somewhere. Like find something you want to make and make a little project. So I forgot to say, I asked about 6 people who are like hirers at digital agencies, like friends and networks, what they thought their key things were for what juniors need to bring to the table, and like side projects was the thing everyone said. If they haven't got anything else going on and they've got a side project or two that they're excited about the industry, I'm much more willing to look at them. So that's a really big one. Also, get online, get into communities. There's so many people talking about this stuff. There's some weird subreddits, so maybe avoid the weird stuff, but the people who are doing interesting things online is a good place to be. Listen to podcasts. I really like The Big Web Show. Jeffrey Zeldman gets a little annoying after a while to hear, but he has some great guests, and it's really exciting stuff. Also, James Bogue. There's so many good ones. Like, you just go listen to stuff. Look at the work people are doing on Dribbble. Get involved in the digital communities. If you're a code writer, obviously get onto GitHub, get an account, start committing to projects. Try IDs, try editors, like have a play, see what editor you like best, see why you like it best. Go learn some tools. If you're a designer, obviously, still get onto GitHub. I'm not kidding, get onto GitHub. Everyone should just get excited about the digital tools. And I'm a big believer that you can't design for digital products without getting involved in the making of them. I don't think anyone should be wanting to be over to the side in a little silo just working with design tools. So even if it doesn't make sense to you, just get in there. There's also a million design tools to learn. Sketch is the new one. There's all the Adobe suite. Understand what vector means, get into all those tools, or try drawing with a Wacom. If you're not familiar with those, they're the little pads with the styluses, and it's a good way to like capture vector information. So all the people making SVGs and animated SVGs, it's a great way to create custom stuff, because I'm sure you guys would agree with me that there's no more fun awesome shit that needs to be on the web where we can move on and make custom icons, right? So like, let's all start making some nice, beautiful custom Illustrator stuff. Now this was an interesting one from a friend of mine up in Collingwood. He said, do you know how to search well? And I'm like, what, everyone knows that. And he's like, no, I've had these juniors who are like, I don't know how to work my Google search queries. They don't understand that, for instance, you can plus and minus query strings, or that you can look for hashtags on social media through Google, or that you can include phrases like a search query in quotes. So there's a lot of detail in this, but obviously, and I don't know if you guys remember this one, this old school Google search, right? He's really old school. I had to like do 10 clicks to find this thing. I think they're phasing it out. But I remember I used to really love this dude because it was really easy to sort of see the construction of your query as you built it, right? And it's a little bit harder with the codes, but you can get the same effect. So yeah, like knowing how to search for stuff, knowing how to try and solve problems is a big one. And inside your code itself as well, can you find and replace? Can you find and replace strings or patterns? That's regex, which you mentioned before, which is, it can be a little bit weird and convoluted, but it's also really powerful, so it's worth discovering if you haven't already. Yeah, another friend suggested that the biggest skill you can bring to the table is the ability to do research, and also to be able to parse the jank from the good stuff. Now, that's probably, I'd suggest, like a career-long skill, and I wouldn't say that juniors would have to like be able to do that at the beginning, but that's the thing we're all aspiring to, right? To be able to like look through a million answers on Stack Overflow and go, this meets my needs, doesn't over-service the problem, and it's a good solution, right? So like, that's the sort of thing we want to learn about how to do, and the only way you learn about that is just doing a crap load of research and kind of getting your internal sort of dowager stick honed properly. Like, you just have to get a feel for it. I don't have a better word for it than that. Another one I got suggested was learn how to navigate sites and applications completely from the keyboard. And there's a couple of really good arguments for this. One is that it helps you really understand accessibility requirements. So when you have a hindrance or no mouse or no trackpad, it can kind of give you a little bit more empathy for what it's like to experience a website with like a sense taken away, and in this case, no mouse. Another thing is that you can learn a bunch of shortcut commands, and everyone knows developers are just people who know a crap load of shortcuts. And also it makes you feel like a badass, which is nice. Okay, so this is a big one. Set yourself some goals. Like, have a think about what you want to learn, or what's interesting you most, and like go, okay, by the end of the year, I'm going to be really good at SVG animation. Or if you don't have a specific like outcome, you can say, I want to feel like this. I want to feel like I'm getting better. I want to feel like I'm improving. Or if you're Arya Stark, you can say, someday I'm going to put a sword through your eye out the back of your skull with code. But most importantly, I want you guys to think about having fun. Like, if you can lean into the stuff that's exciting to you, if you can discover things that are the most interesting, like, we all have like boring, janky work in our lives, like taxes and receipts and things that no one wants to do. So like, don't make your learning and exploring time that stuff as well. Like, try and find the stuff that's really exciting to you that, might potentially make you wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning going, hey, I remember how that's gonna work, or I know how to solve that problem, and go for that. Okay. So once you've changed your headspace and you're feeling excited about the world and you're excited about the industry, give yourself a makeover. And by that, I mean show off the person you are as a developer or an aspiring developer, with a little bit of window dressing, like give people a way to understand who you are at a quick scan. So what I mean by this is get yourself a responsive CV, a LinkedIn profile, and possibly some additional stuff. Like if you have work that you've worked on in the past, like for people who are really starting out, I would argue maybe you don't need a portfolio. Maybe it's silly to try and put your projects that you did at uni up on a folio. Like that might not be that helpful, but once you've done a couple of jobs, once you've got a couple gigs under your belt, then start putting stuff up there. One thing, another piece of feedback I had from a lot of digital agency managers is that they really want to know what you did in relation to the project. So don't be like, here's realestate.com, I did that, because everyone knows that's bullshit, right? Like, talk about what specific skill sets you used and how you participated in the project, what team you worked on, how long you were working on it. So give us specifics. Give us something like meaningful and granular to hook into. Don't just say like, oh, this is the thing, I worked on it, because what does that mean, right? I've seen some video CVs floating around. I'm a little about it. I just put it up there to basically be like, I don't know if you guys feel differently. Like, I think that it's a bit of a marketing ploy. I mean, I'm willing to be proven wrong, but I'd say it's a lot of work for potentially not necessarily a great outcome. You can also look at doing things like getting a brand mark designed, or having a business card or a V card or some kind of way of people getting your details quickly. Or write a blog, or participate on a podcast, or there's lots of ways that you can start sort of building your professional persona past like the basics. But for the purpose of this talk, I just want to deal with the CV stuff, because everything is just too big otherwise. So in case you need convincing, why do I think you need to build a website that's a responsive CV versus having a Microsoft Word document? Because if you're applying for a gig that looks like this, don't represent yourself with a piece of paper, please. And yes, I recognize that for some job applications, you do still have to submit a stupid piece of paper, and it sucks. But make a website that can be printed to PDF and printed out or sent as a PDF file. And that's actually a really good challenge for a responsive page anyway, right? So it's a good all-in-one wrapper. Start from digital and move backwards, not the other way around. So how do we start? Because we all know writing about yourself is hard and it sucks and we all hate doing it. And it doesn't matter what level of your career you're at, it still sucks and we all hate doing it. So start with your audience. This is the easiest way to help you identify what content you need and what content is extraneous. I want you to consider that the person who would be looking at hiring you might be less like this lady and more like this lady. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But I have done quite a lot of hiring over the last couple of years, so I've seen a lot of folios. And I do end up seeing a lot of people writing stuff about themselves, and you go, come on, like, I'm not some annoying person. You don't need to like make my life hard too. Like, I'm with you on this. Like, think about the person as if they were a friend or a colleague, or even like, the cool person who's 5 years above you at the office, right? Like, think about them as someone you want to hang out with, not someone you want to be like, oh, this is an annoying thing and I don't want to deal with it, and you don't want to deal with it, right? So start with your content. You want to think about, what is a story of you? How do people get a feel for what your background is, what your experience is, what your interests are, quickly and easily? I like to start in a text editor, just somewhere like, there's no design, there's no requirements. Just like start by sketching out notes. And I would suggest a user-centered approach by thinking about, what are the things you need to tell me, the person who will hire you, and the order in which I need to know those things. So for an example, if you're from overseas and you're not an Australian national, I want to know your visa status before I know your PHP skills, right? Like, if you're only here for 6 months, that's important for me as a hiring decision, and I need to know that before I find out what your skill set is like or what your personality is like. So think about the order you need to tell people things, as well as exactly what they need to know for you to be appealing as a hire. Obviously, the basics. Make sure you spell check. Correct grammar usage. Have someone else review your content. If you want to put a picture of yourself, that's your call. I've heard people argue on both sides. I think it can be nice to make it more personal. I've also heard people say, well, it tends to make me judgy. I did actually hear a person say exactly that. Like, I tend to be judgy because I can see things about that person before I've met them as a human. that's maybe their problem and not yours, but it's worth considering. If you put an image of yourself out in the world, people are going to associate you with that image, and if it's, so basically, this is a ramble, but the point is, pick something that's positive and represents you, right? Don't pick something that you feel lukewarm on, only put an image in if you really like it. I've heard a lot of people talk about mission statements or objective statements. That's saying, you know, like what you want to be, how you want to be in 5 years. Again, I'm a bit iffy on it. I think if you feel strongly about it, if you think it adds a lot of value to who you are, what your story is, then yeah, chuck it in. But only if the writing is excellent, only if you feel strongly. And if not, don't put some half-assed thing in there that no one feels like, because you know, I'm going to feel that you don't feel strongly about it. Sorry, but nobody needs to put their life story into a CV. You really want to keep this content short, sharp, and focused, right? So keep your work experience relevant and pithy. Again, if you're a junior and you don't have any work experience, just tell me a little bit about your side projects and what you've done at uni, but it can be really tight. Like, I don't need you to make up shit you haven't done, and you don't need to try and bullshit me. So let's just agree we're not going to do that and move on, right? If possible, quantify the impact you've made on a project. So that's like not just, hey, I significantly improved conversion on this button, but conversion improved 20% over 2 weeks after we made this change. So if it is possible to quantify your improvement to a project or your suggestion, that's a nice thing. It's a nice to have. Again, don't give me bullshit metrics. If it doesn't mean anything, don't do it. Yes, I do want to know what software and SDKs or IDEs and languages you write. Those are important things. Everyone writes a big list of their software skills and their tools, but I have a bit of a bugbear about graphs, like this guy. I'm sure you've all seen them floating around, right? This is actually not that bad an example of one, because it's just saying there's 3 levels, right? There's expert, there's intermediate, and there's basic. And that's kind of okay to me. What I really hate are the ones that's like, I have 83% proficiency in Photoshop. Like, what does that even mean? Just try and tell me how many years you've been writing or using that tool, and roughly where you think you sit in levels of expertise. But we're going to tease that out in the interview anyway. So, you know, if you're going to do a chart or a graph like this, make it meaningful, but if you can't, just don't worry about it. Yes, we want to know your personality. I think it's a really nice thing to tell people, like, what events, meetups, things you read. Like, tell me a bit about how you're engaged, what you're doing in the community, like what things are interesting to you. I do really like to hear that juniors are like going out and getting involved in stuff, and then they're not just sitting in the room going, ooh, someone hire me. You know, like, it's nice to hear that you're going out and doing stuff. And if you have interests or sort of passions to share, be specific. Tell me exactly. Like, everybody likes movies. Right? I don't need to say that again. Everybody likes movies. If you're interested in movies, tell me, like, do you like art house cinema? Do you like, I don't know, French biopics from the 40s? Like, do you have a thing that's specific that you can share that makes you more human to me? And if not, don't worry about it. You know, like, it's just another thing we don't need to worry about. And also, I just need a flavor of your personality and the CV and the content on your digital stuff. Like, you don't need to give everything away. Save something for the interview, and don't worry about getting too much information in there. Oh, now we get to the pretty design inspiration bits. Now I'm just gonna, like, again, show you a couple of pretty things. There's so many examples of CVs and folio sites and galleries out there. So I'm gonna start with design ideas and then go to code ideas. So this one I really like. I don't know if this is familiar to you guys. Do you know the Google material design example? So this is just taking that as kind of hanging a lantern on it and going, all right, well, I'm just making a little timeline and I'm keeping those design UI elements consistent. You know, it's a bit Google fanboy, but it's quite cute, right? And I also want to highlight that I don't think that just being a developer is an excuse for having an ass-ugly CV and folio, okay? Like, I think we can all do a little bit better than that. And if you want to be really geeky, just like make it uber geeky and show like an Atari UI, like go totally old school code, you know, like anything, but just don't be like middle of the road ass ugly, because that's no good for anybody, right? We can get better than that. Again, these are those horrible percentage on softwares things, but there's some, oh, this one I liked. I thought this was quite nice. It just kind of gives you a visual flow, can flick through, you get a little intro at the top, and you can see like sort of draws you down through her content. I'm not sure about the full screen background image, like it depends on how big it is, but it's a little bit pretty, it's a little bit simple. I thought this one was lovely. Infographics are obviously really hot right now. If you have the skill set and are interested, this is obviously a way of making a bit of a standout CV. I could see lots of ways that something like this could be responsive, so it could be really lovely to come up with like a 3-column layout that fell down really well, or animated in some way. Anyway, there's so many examples of CV designs online, so I'm just going to leave those links in there for you guys to have a look at if you're interested. Oh, this guy, Adam, I just thought he was clever because he has the thing that I do. He's like, he does design, but he does code, and he's like, where am I? I thought it was kind of a clever interface. He's like, I do write codes, but I'm also into like UI. So it's that duality, left brain, right brain thing. That was a bit clever. Okay, so basically the point of that is have a think about your design. Try and do something that isn't just a template, especially if you're a designer. Like, I'm going to look at your source code and see that it's a WordPress template. So try and do something that's custom, please, if you're a designer. And if you're a developer, just not a Word document would be a great start. Ooh, not quite yet. All right, so now I've got some better ideas. So what do people do when they look at your collateral, like your CV or your folio? They inspect your code. So why not leave some Easter eggs in there which show that this is what they're going to be doing, and you want them to have fun doing it, right? Like, again, like Ari, treating the person who's interviewing you or looking at you as another person that you want to hang out with and not thinking of them as some faraway executive, right? So for an example, ASCII art, I'm a little obsessed at the moment. There's some great stuff. Has anyone seen the oatmeal? It's so good. Where's my view source? Come on. So I am a motherfucking pterodactyl here to tear you a new asshole. So good. And has anyone seen, you guys have all seen the Tumblr one, yeah? I don't need to show you that. And The Verge has a nice one as well. Lovingly brought to you by a chorus. But yeah, there's a heap of people out there making lovely ASCII art, and you can discover it, make it for yourself. It's a little old school, it's a little retro, but I think it's kind of fun. You can be clever or you can be silly. I'm a little bit obsessed with XKCD like everybody in the world, and I'm sure you all know that if you inspect and look at the images, you get these great alt texts. So what does this one say? Sure, it may not meet science fair standards, but I want to get credit for getting my baking soda and vinegar mountain added to the decade volcanoes list. I have no idea what that means. There we go. So yeah, like entertaining, oh, this is actually a title, not an alt text, my bad. Yeah, like adding a little bit of a cheeky poke or something in there against an image in there. Like, say for an example, you had a photo of yourself in there, and as you mouse over it, it could be like, you really want to hire this dude. I would totally giggle if I saw that in someone's CV or folio. So, there are a lot of ways to get a little bit creative. It doesn't have to be super time consuming. It can just be like a cute little thing popped in there. Humans.txt can be a nice thing to chuck in. I know you guys are familiar with this project. It's just a standard that's a way of saying, these are the frameworks I used. I'm going to give credit to the other humans who worked on things that I got to use. And it can be a way of identifying yourself to the development community. So it's a nice one. If you're not familiar with it, have a look. And of course, 404 errors are always a good one. These are the classics, right? Like, sorry, your page is not found. I had an idea for a folio ages ago that I never implemented, but I was thinking it would be quite funny to have a browser support message, that said, like, sorry, I don't support this browser. Like, sorry, I don't support IE7. And also, by the way, here's some other things I don't support. Have a little, like, clicker where you can be like, don't support George Bush. Don't support Rush Limbaugh. One day I'll build that guy, but in the meantime, it's yours. Take it away. And this one is just nuts. I'm gonna try and keep going because we've got a bit more to get through, but this guy is freaking amazing. So this dude took the visual of his skyline and turned it into this crazy code nest. So where's the full markup? I'm not going to bother because I want to keep going, but basically you can see it's the beginning of the peak. He wrote this crazy nesting of like inline font tags, which is awful, by the way. Like that's terribly, terribly depreciated, and we shouldn't be doing that. But it's super cool because he made this like skyline, and it's literally a replica exact skyline that you can see out his window. So that's pretty badass, right? Like it's very cool. Okay, so writing your CV, getting this collateral, it's a great excuse to learn something new. It's a small enough project you can deep dive on something, right? And like, it's not a never-ending website or app or some big horrible thing that sits over your head forever. So there's a million ideas, but just to get you started, learn responsive typography or CSS3 or SVG animation, or play with Flexbox, or try a new framework, or like have a think about doing some crazy content choreography, or learn WebGL, or do something cool with HTML5 Canvas. Like, just some ideas, but do something cool. Go and learn something. Or if you want to be a little bit more pragmatic, you can focus on a metric. Like, make your whole site under 15K. Like, I don't know if you guys know the 5KB like competition thing, but give yourself a top end and be like, what can I do with 15K, right? Or make your site load fast. Or make your content WCAG2 accessible. Like just do something, and then at the end of it, tell the person who you want a job from, hey, look at this cool thing I did with my CV, so that way they know to look for it, right? Because like, again, the people who are hiring you, they're gonna be busy, they're seeing a million CVs, so you can feel free to flag that in your cover letter. Be like, I spent a little bit of time, I put together this cool CV, and I was really interested in accessibility, so this is the thing I did with it. And then I'm gonna be like, oh, that's really cool. I'm gonna have a test of that now, and I'm gonna play and work out. So, but if you don't tell me, I'm probably not gonna look, and therefore all that hard work won't get appreciated. Okay, we're getting there. Okay, so Evie has done all this hard work to make herself a CV, get herself some digital personality, and now she has an interview or a first date. And she's freaking out about it, so she goes and talks to her guru, Laura, who says, right, here's some ways to get success. So you want to learn as much as you can about the company before you get there. You want to know who are their clients, what problems are they facing, what are their opportunities. You want to have some ideas about why you're a good skill set fit for them and why you're a good culture fit for them. And if you don't know either of those things, you need to go do some more research before you apply for a gig with them, right? Like if you really have no idea if you would suit their personality or suit their team, try and find out a little bit more first. This is a good suggestion, I was told. Do a pre-mortem. Think about all the reasons why you won't get this job, and then try and preempt them. So if someone is going to come to you and be like, right, you're untested, you can be like, yeah, well, so is every startup ever, right? So if you think about what your weaknesses are as a candidate and try and preempt them, people will be like, okay, well, she recognizes A, that I'm taking a risk, and that B, she has some stuff to work on, or he, not gendered here. So just try and do a little thinking pragmatically about what makes you strong and weak as a candidate. Obviously preparing for the questions that you're going to get asked, such as what is your understanding of the role, or what experience do you have that will help you with this role. This is a terrible one for juniors who've never worked before because it's like, shit, how do I know how I'm going to have experience when I haven't had experience yet? It's that horrible chicken and the egg question. So a good one for that is to think about what other stuff you've done, like working in hospitality, solving a problem, or working on a uni project with a bunch of team members who didn't want to work together. Like, what other things have you done that might apply? And try and have some of those anecdotes to hand. Fit the outfit, which is, that was a terrible pun again. Fit the outfit that you're working for. Dress to match the people you want to work with. So if you overdress, you look keen or stiff, and if you underdress, you look like you don't care that much. So try and find some company pictures, work out like roughly what their work environment looks like. For the interview itself, be on time. Seriously, like just be on time. not 20 minutes early, not 5 minutes late, just like, rock up a few minutes before you're supposed to be there. This is a big one too. I heard this a lot, and it's because if someone who is going to potentially be your manager has to babysit you for half an hour before your interview is due to start, that's kind of a bad start anyway. Like, it's nicer if you just rock up like a few minutes before you're due to be there. Also, turn the tables on the interview. Treat the company as if you're interviewing them, they're not interviewing you. And what I mean by that is prepare some questions to ask. Be interested in them. Have some questions about what their culture is like, how you're going to learn with them, what their ideas for the future are. And that makes you more engaged and less passive in the process as well. And it shows them that you've put some thought into it. This is for those of you who like mnemonics. This is a methodology for answering interview questions. Like, it's a little bit corporate, so bear with me, but I think it can add value if you're a little bit stuck and you're like, shit, how do I answer this question? So STAR meaning situation. What was the situation? Like, who was involved in the team? What were we doing? What was the problem? Task, like what was the task we were given to do? What we were trying to achieve? What was the action we took? And what was the result of that action? So if someone is asking you a question like, explain what happened when, someone accidentally CD'd into their production server and did something stupid, right? Which everyone has those stories. So if you have like this little methodology in the back of your brain, you can be like, okay, as I answer, oh, well, I was working on a team of 3 developers at this company, and we had to do this thing, we had to push an update live really fast because there was a bug, and okay, so we accidentally did this thing and we CD'd into the production server, and then it was a fuck up. Like that, but that's probably not a great anecdote for an interview, but it hits your STAR methodology. But obviously, in practice, you really do want to obviously give nicer anecdotes which have good results, not bad results. You're in the room to show your personality and your ability to learn, right? So you want to show people how you thought about the problem, not just how you got there, or not just what the outcome was, but like how you thought about it. Maybe some solutions that you thought about and then discarded. That's always a good one because it helps people understand your thinking process, right? After the interview, another good one, do a post-mortem. Work out what you could have done better or which questions threw you off, and then work out a strategy to smash it for the next time. So don't go out of the interview and be like, oh, that was terrible. Like, go to the interview and be like, could have been better. How do I do that better next time? Okay, so once you've had an interview, it's getting serious and you're sitting there going, oh, just hoping and wishing. Things are getting serious and you want to get the gig. So this is the crux of this terrible extended metaphor for me, right? So like, what I really want to stress is that businesses are also prone to being capricious. They sometimes will say yes to you before you rock up to the interview, but then by the time you've got in there, they've already changed their mind, or something has happened that's made it hard for them to hire right now. Like, there's a big world of circumstances and variables going on, and what you bring to the table is only a small part of that. So yes, you can do everything possible to be prepared and try and present well and be a good candidate, but at the end of the day, it's not just what you bring to the table that determines whether or not you're going to get that gig. In other words, no, it is not all about you. And that's a good thing, right? It actually takes some of the burden of like responsibility off, right? You don't have to think, shit, it's only what I do that will succeed or fail here. You go, I can do my best, but then maybe they just lost some budget for hiring, or maybe it was just the wrong moment because they had too many seniors committed and they couldn't mentor me. So don't think it's always just about you. Obviously, after an interview, you want to follow up. Old-fashioned courtesy goes a long way. I've heard people saying they've sent in handwritten notes. I think that's actually quite sweet. Saying, thank you for your time. I'd love to hear your feedback. And obviously, you don't want to be annoying about it. So this is, again, like this terrible metaphor. You don't want to be that annoying person who after the first date is like, hi, can we catch up? Can we catch up, please? Can we catch up? Because like no one wants to hear that. But at the same time, you are owed a simple answer. So you can continue to like ping them at regular intervals until you get a clear yes or no. Always ask for feedback. Find out what you could have done better. Focus on points that help you improve yourself, your presentation. So we've gotten to the end, and to start with, Evie got a call back and said, sorry, you didn't get the gig. And it's terrible, right? Like, she's just gone home and she's going like, shit, why did this happen? But unfortunately, life is not fair. Sometimes you just don't get a gig, even if you had everything right to start. So you just have to say to yourself, tomorrow is a brand new day. Yeah, I should have gotten music for this one, right? But then, 3 weeks later, Evie got a call back. And they said, the interning competition for your role has actually accepted another position, so you're hired. And this can happen a lot, so don't be too bummed if you don't get something on the first go. Sometimes it'll happen later. So that's the end of my talk. I have a crap load of references in here, which you can go to later if you like. I also have a lot of thank yous because a lot of people gave me feedback for this. So Ellie, who I met here, inspired this talk. Taimi Some was my very first mentor, and she helped me learn HTML. And everyone has one of these people, and they're awesome. And if you've had one, try and be one later. Michelle Burke, Julian Smith, Richard Dale, James Noble, Steve Denise, Yuan Wong, and my lovely boyfriend Andy all gave me lots of feedback for this, for this talk. So now go get to work.